Well, ladies and gents, it's a week later and now it's time to discuss the brand new episodes of Amphibia. And even though of course it wasn't as impactful as the premiere, there are still some hidden clues along the way. So yeah, that's all I gotta say this time. I guess we gotta just roll that intro. So the episode opens up with the gang traveling throughout a desert reminiscing about their battle with the toads on the tower. Surprisingly enough though, Anne didn't seem as irritated for the subject being brought up again, unlike the very previous episode. It doesn't necessarily mean that she's completely over it, but possibly recovering from it a bit better and able to handle the heartache. But in speaking of heartache, Sprig apparently created a song about the events that happened during that day, especially including the part where Hot Pot was apparently a coward in a way. Which was ironic to say the least, considering how Amphibia was literally the reason why those rebellions against the toads across the valley were happening, and it encouraged many to stop being taken advantage of. The episode Toad Tax was the perfect representation of exactly what everyone was suffering from while under the rulings of toads. Yet, in this episode, we are no longer on the topic of toads purposely abusing their powers and strength on frogs, but instead frogs taking advantage over small new villages filled with bitty frogs. Frogs known in the real world for being the smallest vertebrates in the Amphibia kingdom, and their names are titled as micro-hylid frogs. Fortunately, Amphibia steps in to save the day, or at least so we thought. As it turns out, Hot Pop only manages to make one of the bullies of the West to flee. And he was only one of the members of the local frog group known as the Hasselback Gang, which were simply a family of crooks, much like the Beagle Boys from DuckTales. The only difference being that Ma Beagle had a ton more children, so yeah. Anyways, the gang end up winning, making Amphibia feel like less of a hero, but miraculously, Anne encourages him by letting him know that it's not just about the glory, but instead about doing the right thing. Something that gets Hot Pop to steer back and attempt to fight off the gang once more, only this time with an actual plan. Before Hot Pop and the rest officially make their way back, we learn that not only do the frogs flat out bully the town, but charge them as well. Also like the toads do to the frogs.
Don't worry, Papa. We'll always have the gift of music.
Yoink! Oh, whoops.
You know, I'm actually pretty numb at this point.
This is beginning to sound like a whole cycle of a crooked economy or something. Soon, Hot Pot returns to face off against the group of frogs. However, it's with the help of Anne and Sprig's giant slingshot. They nearly get away with pretending as if Amphibia tongue was made of steel, but that was until the big mama of the group realizes that it's just sniper fire. So basically, Hot Pot bails after instantly regretting everything, but then reflects on what Anne explained and decides to turn back again. Only to get wrecked, so. But you know what, I really just love how unpredictable the episode turned out to be, because usually the resolution of a situation like this would be that the hero gets back up despite knowing that he'll lose, yet suddenly end up still winning. Only this time Hot Pop is at near death, but then gets avenged by the entire village of the Micro-Hylidae after there's a reveal that their anger unleashes the wrath of 1,000 red ants. To say the least, the small village finally get their well-deserved revolution, and so Anne and the rest ride out of town into the sunset. But suddenly, we're also shown the same robotic frog figure from the previous episode also heading its way towards the sunset. More on this in part 2 of this same analysis. The next episode is about the gang settling down in the middle of the forest, only to realize that they didn't bring enough food for the entire trip. So the next step on their to-do list is to start hunting for food for survival. And apparently not only are the planters known for their crops and farming, but also for their traditional nature dance, which I believe is similar to how certain people can charm snakes into doing a dance. We also officially learned that the clip with Anne supposedly hunting a giant chicken using a blue lit crossbow was all just a part of her wondrous imagination on how she perceived hunting was like. But rest assured, I'm confident that the fighting scene between Anne and Sasha is not something to overlook. I doubt that all this animation budget used wasn't to represent a highly climactic moment. Going back into the episode itself, Anne also assumes that she'll be using a crossbow, some kunai, and possibly some other weaponry to hunt, which in reality it was far from that. And I mainly stress this because Marcy sometime in the future ironically could potentially grant Anne's wish in mastering this weaponry due to her being shown having these skills throughout multiple promotions. So that's definitely something to get hyped up for, especially since it could have been Marcy in the first place who teaches Anne about the secrets behind powering up weaponry. I mean, who's to say that it was Anne who figured it out to truly use her abilities into her sword? For all we know, it'll be Marcy who teaches all. By the way, she is with one of the wisest group of amphibians in Amphibia. Continuing on, both Anne and Sprig start off by hunting down grubbles, which look adorable and all, but the things are known for tasting good, apparently. It's also hard to not realize the fact that these creatures look incredibly similar to our world's Twinkies. It doesn't answer the question on how these things may taste, but it's a wild guess that may be close to an idea of what their flavor may be like. Because we never got a hint of what they might be like due to Anne getting distracted from the sound of Sprig, Hop Pop, and Polly in danger after being captured by a Scorpoleo, a creature amongst the forest that's a literal fusion between a lion and a scorpion. Something that not Sprig himself names, but instead a direct hallucination from Anne's highly stress-induced mind. And I point this out because wouldn't it be strange if Anne recognized the combination of the two animals together, but yet the real Sprig didn't know due to the two animals being mainly known on Earth? Seriously, I know I'm tossing in another one of my humongous theories out there, but you gotta admit, wouldn't it be awesome to find out that most of the wildlife in Amphibia were all just experiments made by humans in the other dimension bundled up into this one's? It would explain so much about the different species of this world and why the Calamity Box gives people access to another world, but it totally doesn't explain how it ended up in a pawn shop. I'm sure that it was supposed to be some sort of a hidden and forbidden discovery, yet it was lost and then eventually found by someone who had absolutely no idea of its power. Anyways, Anne saves the gang by doing the famous hunting dance to entice the beast and lure it into a ditch in order to give them enough time to escape. However, once more, the episode doesn't officially end until the very same robotic frog from before shows up and is also seen pacing its way around the forest. At this point, the darn thing not only seems as if it's most likely catching up with Anne and them in the future, but possibly not even be that much of a threat. The metallic frog barely stood a chance against the forest trees and quite honestly looks to be built like a regular frog and not a toad. The significance in this is huge considering how this would mean that hopefully it's not on Grimes' side, but possibly the frog's instead. But also at the same time, I'm sure that Hop Pop of all people would have known about it. That is unless he did. Going back into the Bazaar episode, Hop Pop comes across a page in his book warning readers of the dangers of the Calamity Box. However, I don't necessarily believe that it's the music box itself that's dangerous, but instead the things that come out of it. Quite honestly, I really don't know if the thing even has a side. We do see it crush the bones of deceased frogs, but it could have all been an invention for humans on Earth to spy on the world of Amphibia. Yet the robot does possess a comparable symbol to the one shown onto the badges of the toads, but the same one can be shown onto the uniform Anne wears in the introduction. But she technically was wearing the same getup whenever she disguised herself to be Sasha in the season finale, so perhaps this is for the toads, possibly? But then there's the fact that frogs like Emerald Spotted and Parent Tree frogs have eyes like these, not toads. Ugh, man, maybe I should just stick with the fact that humans may be spying in Amphibia or something. But complex theories aside, I really doubt that the ancient ruins would include machinery and technology made by Grime and his men, yet it doesn't get used. This basically concludes today's analysis. I'm really trying to break down as much as possible, and maybe even going over a little bit overboard, but it's for the sake of analyzing. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for participating in another video. Give it a like if you like it, and still give it a like if you didn't, or I will fine you. And don't forget to support this channel on Patreon at patreon.com/TNBT, only if you're able to and willing. And I would like to publicly thank a person by the name of Ion Comics for their generous contribution. And also, he or she is my very first patron. Congratulations. This has been TNBT, and be sure to catch me again in the next one. Peace!